those terms because Washoe County is a different kind of a county than White Pine, and it had a long history of developing a lot of detailed regulations with a very, I don't know how well staffed, but a fairly well-resourced planning and zoning office and commission. And there was a fairly built-up set of requirements that had to be met to get a special use permit. Because they had that in place and it was uniformly applicable to any applicant in the county, they could apply it and use it as a basis for rejecting that water project, and it was upheld by the Nevada Supreme Court. You could do that here in White Pine County. What you have to be careful of is not enacting something that is targeted only at Sunwall or Sunwall's project. And because the project has not gone forward yet, you would have to try and develop a code or an ordinance, you could call it either, that was comprehensive enough and have it in place before the project is effectively approved and is actually being built and operated, so that it would be timely. You can't, after the fact, enact that kind of a land use planning approach and then try and impose sort of, again, after the fact, a procedure for a permit that then you want to deny. It would have to be in place in a timely way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But there is that toolkit available to the county, and I do believe that your district attorney, Mike Wabel, has already talked with me about it, and he may have done some work on it. I'm not the county attorney. I only work on this case and this set of legal challenges, so I'm not sure what you do have in place now, but I know that that is something that members of the county commission and the DA have looked at and are considering. And I think it would be, within the tolerance level of people in White Pine County, it would be a good thing to do, because it would empower the county to control things like this project.
How much compensation does White Pine County get for that water that they're gonna send out here?
I'm tempted to give you the answer of none whatsoever, but I'm not sure. I think there is actually a very small amount of compensation called for under the Nevada water law, which I have never really looked into, because it would be a joke. It would not be in any way a
It should be
significant.
worth a lot of money to them, so they should pay for it.
Oh, of course, of course. I don't want to encourage, big cities in the West. I do work throughout the rural West, primarily Southwest. I don't want to encourage the cities to buy up all the water rights of all the people in the rural communities, because I think there's a lot of value to ranching and farming in the small communities.
But I'm just saying, if they're
But that would be a different case.
Why pay high dollar for it to raise their casinos down there? My brother ran Circus Enterprises, and I know about big casinos. So if they gotta pay a good price for it, they won't want it.
Mr. Herskowitz?
Yes.
I've got two questions. One is, what is the outlook for what's gonna happen on November 15th? Are we pretty confident in the outcome? And second, is there anything specifically that elected boards in this community can do to assist you guys in your efforts here?
Well, the first question is about the likely outcome in court. And the hearing on the 12th. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. The hearing is on the 12th and the 13th, and I'm really hesitant to make overly confident or optimistic predictions or projections. I just feel like we have to recognize, in general, the dynamic in this state is we're up against the most powerful, wealthy part of the state, and the interest groups that have the greatest clout, politically and otherwise, in the state. However, the courts have been consistently admirable in applying the law straightforwardly and without, as far as I've been able to tell, without any kind of political consideration. Judge Estes issued a ruling that reflects what I just described. I think we have reason to be optimistic or somewhat confident. What I can say is that our position is extremely strong on the law. The law has been consistently interpreted and applied for a long time in Nevada, and it's really in this context and in a few other controversial projects that have been going forward and then getting reversed. The state engineer just recently has begun to agitate for a change in how the law is interpreted, or recognizing that he's been losing in court. In case you have not been aware of it, in the last few legislative sessions, the state engineer and Sunwell have been trying to change the law, which is tacitly an admission that they can't comply with the law. So I don't want to sound overly confident, because I feel like that's asking for trouble and we don't have control over these things. But I actually feel like we are in an extremely strong position. The judge is being asked by the other side to tell himself and everyone else that he's wrong. He's being asked to reverse himself, and in one instance, to also rule against the Supreme Court of the state, which he really technically can't even do. So I think that there's good reason to believe that we should get a ruling from the district court judge that is a reaffirmation of our victory last time. That's what I think. The Nevada Supreme Court has also given good signals, but that's another couple of years off, probably. I mean, we would be before them and briefing them probably next year, late in the year, maybe middle to later part of the year, but I doubt that there'd be a decision or a hearing until the year after that. Again, I don't wanna be presumptuous. I think we have a good court, and I think that we've won in the past, and we've seen other opponents to these kinds of projects win in the Nevada Supreme Court. So in the courts, I feel like we have some reason to have some confidence or optimism. As for what elected officials in Ely and White Pine County can do, that's a hard question for me to answer. I think making sure that your residents are aware of the issue and, you know, having a hearing, rather a meeting like this is a good thing to do because it helps get the word out. It also allows us to hear from different folks in Ely and the surrounding communities about what they think. Certainly for people to attend the hearing would be beneficial. I personally believe that judges as human beings are affected by who is in the courtroom. It doesn't always make that big a difference, but I know that in my work on this case and in some other similar types of cases around the West, judges notice if the people who are really being threatened or impacted have taken the trouble to come and sit in the courtroom and watch what the judge is doing. And he or she, I think, recognizes that they have to be mindful of the actual impact that this is gonna have on people and communities when they're confronted with people from the affected communities. So I think getting people to come out would be another important thing. And the obvious thing is already being done by White Pine County, which is White Pine County is contributing a great deal of the funding to support this legal case. I didn't come here to ask for money, but obviously the work that the network and I do is hard, and it's being done on a shoestring budget. So going forward, just keep that in mind. I'd ask you not to ask me, I'm a public interest lawyer doing the work at the invitation of the people who are fighting this. But I mention it just because it's a fundamental reality here, that as we basically go up against opponents who spend 100 to maybe 200 or 300 times what we can. And we've won, and I think it's because our position in the science and law is the correct position. But it's been a burden on White Pine County. The Central Nevada Regional Water Authority has always been signing on and supportive, but they don't have the financial resources to really contribute much. So I don't want to make it about money, but just to keep in mind, that's a part of the equation here. And I'm very grateful for White Pine County's steadfast, substantial commitment to this case. They really made it possible. As Abby mentioned, for the first several years, there were grants that the Great Basin Water Network had that covered almost all of the expenses. And those were years back in 2005, 2006, maybe 2007, when White Pine County just didn't have those resources. Fortunately, things have changed, and just as the network sort of had less money available, the county had more. So we made it work. Let's keep it going. Sir, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm looking out at the audience here tonight. I'm wondering in my own mind, as a matter of fact, why don't we try to fight this also with a different avenue besides just the courts and the state laws and the state engineer? Some years ago, when the pipeline was proposed, many years ago, I met Pat Mulroy right within this community when she came up, and honestly I have to say, she's by far one of the most intelligent women I've ever known, or had the pleasure of meeting. But on the other hand, when the pipeline was estimated at around $11 billion, I took a calculation, that's some years back, of the amount of households that were in Clark County. We're talking about Anderson, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Boulder City, Mesquite, all of them. And when I came through with the calculation of what it would cost to build that pipeline of $11 million in comparison to what they would have to pay for their water service and their the residents, not the businesses now, I came up with using their ratio of what they would charge their residents at that time, I should say. And the cost of producing water through that pipeline to a resident would cost the resident over $420 a month. Now, why can't we fight that kind of a fire to let the people in Clark County, by advertising or something, what this particular idea would cost them as individuals living in a home?
Well, that's a good question, sir, and let me just say that that is an issue we have actually addressed. And the Great Basin Water Network, and White Pine County, but it's really GBWN that does this kind of thing, has done a great deal of outreach to the media and has tried to do as much reaching out to the public down in Clark County, the rate-paying public who would be affected by this, about the project, its dangers, and also its costs. We are hamstrung in two ways. One is, it costs a lot of money to do that kind of outreach through advertising, and we can't really do that kind of advertising. We haven't had the budget to do a huge sort of newspaper, TV, radio, billboard type advertising campaign that would actually affect people. There's also a lot of transients in Clark County, so sometimes it's hard to make a point and have it really take hold because some people don't stay there for very long. But the cost is one structural problem for us. The other is, we really wanted to we actually presented economics cases to the state engineer, and I know you're saying get out of that forum or go beyond that forum, but we were able to get a public interest economist to analyze, and policy analyst, to look at and talk about the actual rate impacts to ratepayers of this project using Sunlaw's own figures. That was not enough for the state engineer, and the courts didn't buy it either. Again, if we tried to get that message out using advertising, it's just a matter of cost. But we have looked at it. We also had another economist analyze the project from a different angle, and that also didn't get much traction. I'll tell you, I've known since the day I started working, since the year I started working on this, that someone did a cost-benefit analysis of this project in the early 90s, came to the conclusion that its true cost would be closer to $40 billion than 15 or 2 or whatever they were saying at the time. And he broke it out in a cost per unit for why this was not a rational project to proceed with. That's different than saying how much it's going to cost the ratepayers, but it ties in closely to that. And it would naturally allow us to do that kind of publicity and public education, let's say. When I tried to work with that gentleman, who I don't think I should name, he was interested. He wanted to help us build that case, not a legal case, but make that economic fact apparent so that people could understand how much this was going to cost and how wasteful and irrational it was. He couldn't, because he worked with a tribe of Indians in the southern part of the state, the Mohawk Band of Paiutes, and they were already in a contractual relationship with the Southern Nevada Water Authority, where they depend on the Southern Nevada Water Authority to help them with their water needs. So he was directed not to work with me, not to work with us. And when we looked for other people, not only in Nevada but in California, we found that people were too afraid of losing business or potential business with Sunlaw, and too afraid of being subject to blacklisting or attacking from Sunlaw to work with us. So, as a real practical matter, the issue you've targeted, which is a good one, is one we've done our best to try and get at. But we haven't been able to find someone competent to build that case well. And we don't have the resources to go out to the public in Clark County and say, look, here's an objective study, here's what this project is going to cost, and here's how that translates to your wallet on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. We know that's a good avenue, and we do what we can in terms of educating the public, reaching out to the news media to get these messages across. But I would just point out that we've been somewhat frustrated in making the point as effectively as you would like us to make it. And I don't think we've given up on it. I just think it's a matter of both having the money and finding the right people. I can say anything, but I'm not a persuasive person talking about what the cost is. So we need someone who's qualified.
I think he's pretty persuasive.
Well, I'm not,
We've had a lot of discussion. I wanted to see if anyone else had anything to say, or, if officials wanted to comment, but Chairman, I just wanted to kind of, go to your discretion and see what you think.
I think we've addressed pretty much everything. We had a time limit on it, and tried to just,
How about a little word from the water committee?
hang on just a second. I'm not shut down, but let's try to narrow it down. We have a couple of people. We do have public comment that's coming. This particular period that we have set aside was for Q&A. We allowed a lot of that. We infiltrated some public comment into it, but we're trying to stay on task. So, as we're moving forward, I think it's right now to stop the Q&A unless there's some questions. Now, again, we're gonna go to public comment, and we're gonna have some additional public comment if those want to, but I think if we narrow it down and try to not get repetitious, we end the Q&A, we go back to the public comment, allow anybody their public comment, because that's what we do, and then we'll proceed with the meeting, because we still have a water advisory committee meeting at the end of this. So I don't mean to be rude to anybody, and if you have a question of sending in that right now, I would welcome that, but I'd kind of like to move this meeting on and expedite it just a little bit. So let's, if you don't mind, if there's no more questions, and these are pertaining to questions only, I would like to end this part of the meeting, and I'll end that, I'll go into public comment, and I'll allow anybody in public comment that wants to speak, and then we'll move on, and the Water Advisory Board will be able to open their own meeting. Is that okay?
We're here at your pleasure.
I have a question for you, Kyle.
Yes.
Can you talk about what's been going on in Congress?
Well, there's a proposal out there that has been drafted by lobbyists paid for by Clark County, and in that bill, there are pro-pipeline provisions that we are actively working to defeat, and I'm in close contact with officials here and others throughout the state, but we are fortunately gaining a groundswell of support in opposition of this proposal. So I think know that that is why we needed to gather here today. It's one of the many reasons that we're getting attacked from all types of different levels. But as this community has demonstrated over the years, we can overcome these things, and so that's what we're here to do. I think if we take the question from Mr. Butts and then we proceed with the meeting, I think that would be wise.
Oh, that's okay, they can hear me from the rest. For the record, my name's Bill Butts, I'm a member of the White Pine County Water Advisory Committee, and we're talking about Marcus Wind study, basically, what Simeon's talking about. Well, we're talking about interbasin transfer between Spring Valley and Steptoe Valley, which is a reality that could happen. Simeon's got it in the record, but the Great Basin Water Network and their hydrologists have drawn a study that says that over time, that when they take down Spring Valley, the water in Steptoe Valley could drop 200 feet. I think people have got to get on the stick and find out if this is reality or not. This is Dr. Myers did it. I mean, he didn't come from under a rock someplace. And he used all of the Central Nevada Water Authorities, or the SNWA's methods to do it on their computer programs. So I think that you're gonna have to find some money. We've started a plan to try to get some money to get the USGS to do that study. Of course, we're the poor cousin, we gotta go buy a cup of coffee.
but, it would be nice if we could find something. I see that we get lots of parks and ball diamonds and golf courses and everything from Simplema. Can't we get some environmental money to take care of White Pine County from Simplema? I mean, there's an angle, I know probably they got that cut off or you can't do it. But we're gonna have to get somehow to finance that study to eliminate that hazard that maybe Ely won't have any, or Steptoe Valley won't have any water. The second thing I wanted to talk about is we're talking about the mine. Mine's gonna quit pumping water now in a couple of years. Then you're gonna get your water out of Steptoe Valley. I think you guys ought to take a water quality test between what you're getting from the mine and what you're gonna get from Steptoe Valley. Because Steptoe Valley is some of the hardest water in the world that's got calcium in it. And some of these old deers are gonna go to wash the windows someday and it's all gonna come off white. They won't be able to shine their windows up because it gums everything up. So these are things that you need to think about. I've talked to him about it with Bartley, and he says, oh, you'll have to check it out. Well, I don't think your water quality is gonna be as good as it was when you had the spring up at Murray Summit. I think that was a bad move, but that's just me. We got another water plan coming, the legislature and everything approved it, and they're gonna figure 50 years in the future. It's so much more complicated than what we're doing right now. You're gonna have to figure 50 years in advance, where are you gonna get the water if your water supply here, say Steptoe Valley, God's hoping it don't, went down there and you're pumping nothing but air, where are you gonna get water from then? You have to have a backup plan from that. You're gonna get it from Butte Valley, you're gonna take Steptoe Creek and put it in the pipe, I don't know. But it gets into all kinds of things. What are you gonna do with the sewer water? It's quite a plan. I think everybody ought to be taking a look at it because it's gonna be very expensive. And they thought that they might find some money to help the little cow counties get by and that, but I guess that didn't get passed. So, I think that there's a few items that we need to get going. We need some members on the water committee. You know, we need somebody who's got skin in the game, somebody with a pulse. You know, that don't come a couple of meetings and then they go away someplace else. Gotta have somebody that's in it for the long haul. I don't know how many times they put an ad in the paper for people to sign up to come. We have a meeting, it's a water committee that's there isn't a clue here what the hell goes on there. And where are the calm times, you know? All I meet's the yappers up down. They wanna know about what's that. Come into the meeting and find out. So there's openings for everybody. Like we had the legislature. Okay, we put a thing out, let's write. Well, I come to find out, you pass it around, and they want some help, somebody complaining about a bill. Damn few people bothered to send a letter. One guy from the commission told me, oh, he says the commission sent a letter. Well, then the commission should have had 6 letters if we was interested in it. This isn't a part-time little job that you come for tea and crumpets once a month and that's it. There's a lot of time invested. I'd like to have, I've got the guys on the committee here, like they just had their telephone bill paid. That's how much we make. Then we can pay the phone bill. So, sorry for reventing, but that's where it's at.
Well, Bill, we appreciate your passion on these issues. And, in my time, it has been a pleasure speaking with you.
Joe Perez for the record. I want to know what is going to happen to White Pine County and the surrounding counties actually when we run out of water. Las Vegas sounds like is living on a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. I lived in California for most of my life. I remember back in the 80s that pipeline, pumping the water from Owens Valley. I remember fishing in those streams way back then. You can't get nothing there anymore. Everything is dried up. What's going to happen to us? We moved here hoping for a better lifestyle with no restrictions on water. And now I'm sitting at a meeting 8 years after I moved here, listening to you tell me that Las Vegas wants my water. We finally bought a home. We're settling. We put roots down. We're raising our children. What's going to happen to us?
Okay, well, let me just say that right now, what's happening is Las Vegas, or the Southern Nevada Water Authority, is trying to do exactly what you just described. If they were to get the water they want, the first thing that would happen is that the basins that they're pumping from would suffer really substantial, really severe water drawdowns. The groundwater table would go down precipitously, quickly and by a large amount. And that would then spread outward from where the pumping was occurring, not only through those basins, but into hydrologically connected basins. That's what Mr. Butts was referring to. If the Spring Valley projections are accurate, it's computer modeling, but it's pretty reliable, eventually the pumping in Spring Valley would begin to draw water out of Steptoe Valley, because the groundwater table would decline so much that the gradient between the groundwater systems in the two valleys, which are connected, would shift and become one that drained water from Steptoe Valley. It would take a lot of time, but eventually people in Steptoe Valley would lose, well, surface springs would dry up in areas where the water table was declining, and of course, wells would stop being productive unless they were drilled ever deeper. So on a practical level, it's not a very pretty picture that would happen if this project is allowed to go forward. But what's also happening is that we are fighting very hard, which means you are fighting very hard through us, to both publicize that danger and to try and stop it using our legal methods. Now, council member, is it Flangus?
Yes.
Flangus pointed to another thing that if we had more resources, I think we would definitely be pursuing more, which is trying to educate the public in Southern Nevada about what a bad idea, from a purely selfish perspective for them, what a bad idea this project will be, because it will cost so much. And beyond that, it's also not, in the long term, going to be reliable. They're going to drain aquifers and basins in this part of the state, and then they're going to run out of water. The project is going to become unsustainable and overly expensive. So they'll be turning to desalination probably someday in the future. And I think they recognize that, they being the Sunwa folks. But they're not admitting it because they think they're entitled to your water, to this project. So we're fighting in the courts and in the state engineer procedures, the proceedings that then lead us into court. And all I can say is that if we're able to be victorious, you won't face that future. The water here will be protected, at least from this threat. I can't promise you that other people with a profit motive won't come after the water because they may see some way of pumping it down to another location that where they think that it's going to be more profitable. But once we establish a precedent, if we do win in court, that the water is not available unless certain things are demonstrated, which is a practical matter, you can't demonstrate. You can't pump this water out of these basins sustainably without violating the law, without ruining senior water rights, which have priority under our legal system. So if we stop this project, I don't think you need to think that you're going to have the same fate as the Owens Valley. From the beginning of our fight on this campaign, we consulted with people in the Owens Valley, lawyers and other people who had survived and gone through the struggle that they've been going through for decades to try and get some kind of some repair or mitigation out of Los Angeles. You know, LA DWP, I think it's called. They pump a lot of money into the Owens Lake area, the Owens Valley, and they actually pump some of their water right back into the valley, or they take it out and then they spread it on the land. All that money and that water doesn't come close to fixing the problems. It's still a disaster. But those people with their experience have given us some of our advice and some encouragement in our fight. And our point is to prevent that from happening to you and the other people in this area. So, and the economic case, if we can do a better job of building it and publicizing it in Southern Nevada, I agree. The first time I worked on a water project like this, albeit smaller, it was in Southern California. It's called the Cadiz Water Project. And we defeated it. It's still now back in courts because as long as there's money to be made, there's going to be people trying to go after water. But it was not in the courts. It was by publicizing just the kind of thing you mentioned. And the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which is actually bigger than San Juan, but is a similar entity, they voted on their own to reject the project because they saw how expensive it was going to be and how irrational that would be for them as an agency and for their ratepayers. So there's more fights, or there are more ways of fighting it, that I think hopefully you or we all collectively will be able to mount to help stop the water from being taken.
Thank you, and we're gonna open up public comment. I think we've had a lot of public comment that kind of trickled into the Q&A period. We have another